Well, welcome to this session on simplifying AWS WAF and CloudFront security for faster deployments. My name is David Brown. I'm a principal product manager on the Amazon CloudFront team. I'm joined today by Kustab Fatak, who's a senior product manager on the AWS WAF team, and Logan Gore, who is a software development manager also on the AWS WAF team. We're very excited to be sharing with you today some changes that we've recently launched on both of these services, AWS WAF and Amazon CloudFront, to make them easier to get up and started and running on both of these services. One of the things that we hear from customers is you understand the value of having CloudFront for application performance and scalability, and you understand how crucial it is to have WAF for security on your web applications. But there's a lot of challenges around getting up and running and started on both of these services, especially if you're not a security expert or a CDN expert, which most of us aren't. And then once you're actually up and running on these services, oftentimes you don't know whether you're taking full advantage of the services themselves or even whether your application is secure. And so today we're going to tackle both of these problems with the changes that we've recently rolled out. And we're going to start with CloudFront, and then we're going to jump into WAF a little bit later. But we're going to go through a customer example first to show you how the experience is today. So I'd like to introduce you to Example Core. Great name. Took us a lot of time to think of this. Example Core is a leading e-commerce retailer specializing in high-end fashion. They're small, but they're growing fast. They've got 45,000 customers. They're growing 35% year over year. And they're fortunate enough to have just landed some VC funding. And now as a result of that funding, they now have a lot more pressure to maintain the performance of their Next.js application. And then, of course, making sure that that application stays secure. So I'd like you to meet Alex. Alex is Example Core's lead full stack developer. Alex is in charge of the Next.js app that's fueling a lot of this growth that Example Corp is experiencing. Alex is a very savvy developer. She's good in web technologies and web frameworks. But like a lot of full stack developers, her expertise lies in application development, not in infrastructure and scaling out applications and security. And Alex is by no means unique in this example. We run into customers all the time that have the same problem. They have really skilled developers, but these developers don't have the time or the expertise to set up CloudFront and AWS WAF, especially if you have to do these things manually. And so what is Alex actually trying to achieve? It's a pretty straightforward architecture. Put CloudFront and WAF in front of their application servers, which are running in an AWS region. But anyone who's actually tried to implement an architecture like this can attest that the journey to get here can actually be quite complex. There's a lot of services that you have to interface with. There's some complex security rules and CDN configurations you have to manage. And then, of course, getting all of that to work together seamlessly can be really challenging and really complex. And so let's walk through the setup process that Alex would actually have to go through to get that straightforward architecture deployed. So she's first going to start with Amazon CloudFront, and she's going to go into the console. She's going to create a new distribution. She's going to see a big, long form with a bunch of fields she has to fill out. And the first thing she's going to do is go look at the public documentation to figure out what the heck she needs to be doing. Once she's done that, she'll start to actually configure the CloudFront distribution. She'll eventually get to a place where she needs to decide whether they want to include AWS WAF or not. She knows she needs WAF, so to start that process, she has to leave the CloudFront console to go to the WAF console to start configuring WAF. She's going to try to create a web ACL. The first thing she's going to do there is go read the public documentation because it's really confusing and complicated to get set up and running. Then she's going to actually go and configure WAF. And once that's done, she'll go back to the CloudFront console and she'll attach the web ACL that she created. Then she'll get to the place in the distribution setup process where she enters the domain for her application. And then CloudFront's going to say, oh, you got to go to Certificate Manager to get a TLS certificate. So Alex leaves the CloudFront console, goes to Certificate Manager to provision a new TLS certificate. And then ACM is going to say, well, you have to go to Route 53 to show that you have ownership of this domain. So she leaves ACM, goes to Route 53 to configure her domain ownership records. And from Route 53, she goes back to ACM. There, the certificate eventually gets provisioned, and she goes back to CloudFront. And at this point, she can actually now provision her CloudFront distribution. But she's not done yet, right? You have the distribution, but no traffic's actually going to the CloudFront distribution. So to get traffic flowing, she then has to go back to Route 53, update her DNS records, and point her domain from the application load balancer to CloudFront. And now at this point, she has a fully functional working distribution. Now, is it set up properly? Maybe. Does she have the right security rules? Possibly. And so you can see this is a really complex setup to get just that simple CloudFront plus WAF setup in front of your architecture. And so to solve for this problem for Alex and many other customers, we redesigned the CloudFront experience to make it now a simple workflow for developers to step through the entire creation process. If you're using Route 53, this new console experience will automatically handle all of the TLS provisioning and management, as well as DNS management. And best of all, you get AWS security rules out of the box by default. And with this unified experience, you no longer have to manage multiple services like ACM, WAF, and Route 53. All of that's handled for you. And so now you can deploy faster without needing to understand all the nuances of these underlying services. And to give you an example of just how easy it is to now deploy a CloudFront distribution with security, if you assume you want to put a CloudFront distribution in front of an application load balancer, you just have to give CloudFront first the domain name you want to use, and then point CloudFront to your ALB. And from there, CloudFront can provision automatically the optimal CDN caching rules for your application type, as well as the right security rules automatically for you. And so it's very quick, very fast, very easy to get up and running on a new CloudFront distribution, and you should never have to leave the CloudFront experience to get all of this set up and working for you. So I'm going to do a quick demo here just to show you how all of this works. And assuming, okay, I think we're going. And so if you're familiar with the CloudFront console, this should look pretty familiar. We're going to click Create Distribution. And now instead of that big long form that used to be there, you now have steps that guide you through each of the various phases of creating a distribution. And so the first thing we're going to do is give our distribution a name. And we'll call it prod here. And then you'll notice there's now these distribution options. There's a new multi-tenant architecture. That's for our recently launched feature called CloudFront SaaS Manager. We're not going to go into that here. So for the purposes of this, we're just going to keep it as a single website or app. And then we optionally give our distribution a domain name. So in our case, we want to put a domain name in. And we're also, once we've done that, we're going to go over to the right there, and we're going to click Check Domain. And this is going to see where our domain's actually hosted, or what's the DNS provider for our domain. In our case, it's Route 53, which is great. Now we can do a lot of optimizations on behalf of the customer. And then we're going to click to add a subdomain here just to make this demo a little more spicy. And we'll add www here. And then we'll go next. And here we select our origin. So the origin is just where CloudFront fetches content when it's not in cache. And you can see we've broken out the most popular types of origins that customers have. In our case, we're just going to use S3, and we're just going to browse S3 and find our S3 bucket. And then there's a couple of settings here. And so the first one is grant CloudFront access to origin. This setting, if you're familiar with CloudFront, is known as origin access control. And this allows you to keep your S3 bucket private. And CloudFront will go and provision an S3 bucket policy on your behalf that will give CloudFront access to your private bucket. So it's a nice security offering to keep your bucket private and only allow your distribution access to the content in your bucket. And then there's additional origin settings here. And we provide recommended settings for all origin types. And we, again, recommend most customers use those. If you need to change them for whatever reason, you can under the customized origin settings. But again, Alex is not an expert here, so she's just going to use the recommended settings. Now we have the option to enable security protections. In our case, we want to enable security, so we just click that Enable Security Protections, and that's it. Now CloudFront will, based on your origin type, select the right security rules for your application. Now, over time, as you adjust your configuration, we may recommend additional rules, but at least out of the box, you've got your right set of rules. Now, here's where we need to provision a TLS certificate. You can see we don't have a TLS certificate already, so we're going to have to create a new one for these domains. And it's as simple as just clicking Create Certificate. And now CloudFront's off working with Certificate Manager and Route 53 to go out and provision that certificate. And once it's issued, which should just take a couple of seconds here, you'll see that that your certificate's ready to go, and you can use it immediately without ever having to leave the CloudFront experience. After that, we're just going to click Next. We're going to do a quick review to make sure all the settings are right. And then we just click Create Distribution. And at this point, we have a fully working distribution with optimal caching settings and security settings for our application. And so we're going to take another look here. Let's fast forward just a little bit here and assume for a second that we've been running our distribution for a little bit of time now, and you're noticing that there's some anomalous traffic coming from North Korea, let's say. And so we need to block this traffic. Our company isn't allowed to do business there. And so we're going to hop in here to another CloudFront distribution, and we're going to go to the Security tab. If you've used CloudFront recently, you'll know that this Security tab is already there. It hasn't changed much, but it gives you a high-level overview of your WAF settings and metrics directly within the CloudFront experience. But one of the things that you weren't able to do previously was create new WAF rules directly from the CloudFront experience. And so we've added now the capability for you to create custom rules that apply directly to the WAF configuration on your distribution. So we're going to go to Manage Protections and click Manage Rules. And here you can see a list of all the rules that are already applied on this distribution. And to add a new rule, we just click Add Rule. And there's a couple of different types of rules that you can create very quickly and easily. In our case, we're creating a geo-based rule. You just give the rule a name. And then you, under statement, you find the country that you're trying to block. And then we create the rule. And just like that, you've now created a brand new WAF rule directly from the CloudFront console. And so hopefully this demo gives you a good understanding of how quick and easy you can get up and running on CloudFront with AWS recommended caching rules and security rules out of the box without ever needing to leave the CloudFront experience. And so now I'm going to hand it off to Kostub, who's going to share some of the exciting changes on the WAF side.
Hey everyone, my name's Kostub Phatak. I'm the product manager on the AWS WAF team. And we'll talk a little bit about the transition from this small startup to an enterprise. So imagine a few years have passed and Example Corp is no longer a small startup anymore. It has 50 million active customers. It is It has a market cap of 3.2 billion. It is listed, and along with that, it has requirements around uptime and the requirements for being a global platform. So that's where the security challenges are now different. Earlier, it was one Next.js application. They were trying to protect it using basic security or recommended security rules. Now, there are different types of applications that they're protecting. It's not just Next.js. There's APIs, there's WordPress, there's LAMP-stack, there's CMS, all types of applications. And now there's real revenue at risk. So if things go bad, there's like 500 million annual digital revenue at risk. So there's more pressure to make sure that any changes that are in place are tested, are following the best practices, and nothing is breaking it. The attacks have also changed now because they have become a bigger company. It's more attractive for attackers to continue attacking these companies. So that's where we have a bunch of 75 plus attacks that we're seeing on a daily basis. This includes any zero-day attacks as well. All of that with a team of 5. I don't know if that is the case with all of your companies, but we have seen so many customers struggle to scale up their security operations as the company continues to scale. Along with that, because they are now in 100 countries, they need to have different regulations, GDPR, HIPAA, PCI, etc. So they need to adhere to all those as well. So what are the real pain points? Like if you look at the pain points, there's the complexity of configuring the WAF configurations or CloudFront configurations has gone up tremendously. So time-consuming configurations is the current experience that we have, so which we're trying to fix. Then we have security gaps. We don't give any recommendations on what rules you need to be creating. We do it in the new experience, but previously it is just an empty container where you can add any sort of rules. So that's, and hope that it's right? Like it's, the rules are as good as the person who's configuring those rules. And so there's like an inherent issue that have I configured the rules correctly? There's dashboard overloads. We have, like if you're using bot control, if you're using fraud control, and if you have WAF as well, there's like 4 different types of dashboards that you need to look at for any event. And then specialized knowledge is required to even get started with a web ACL and a WAF configuration. So now, meet the new experience. So what we have done is instead of giving you an empty slate, we start off by asking you a little bit about your application. So in this case, we ask you the app category and where the majority of your traffic is coming from. Once you tell us about that, we give you protection packs or rule packs. So this is a set of rules that are curated based on the response that you have provided at the top or the previous slide. And this will change based on what the options you're configuring. Here you can see the recommended option, which includes things like bot control as well as our threat intelligence-based IP rules. There's also essentials. So the way to think about this is if you're running a hobby project, if it's a proof of concept, you don't want to apply the same level of security that you would want to apply for a production app, you can go with essentials. Otherwise, we go with recommendations. Recommended rule pack. We also have a estimated cost. This is based on the public pricing. So in one page, you have a way to figure out how much it's going to cost you and what are the rules that are being created. And all of this is one click, right? Before, to create a rule like this, you would probably need to go through like 75 plus steps, 5 different consoles. Right now, it's just one click on one screen and it's done. So once you create a web ACL, you would want to have some visibility improvements as well. Like how do you know how it's performing? So here we have our first attempt at doing traffic-based insights or recommendations. So here we are actually looking at the exact traffic that is flowing through your application and through your web ACL. And then we're matching it against these different types of rules that we have. Now, in some cases, you might already be protecting it. Like in the screenshot, we have bots is already protected, so we tell you that. But then the DDoS traffic being allowed is not enabled. So it will tell you that, hey, if you enable this rule, you will block 75% more traffic, and it'll give you like a sense of how many requests those are. You can enable the rule in count mode right off of this page, so you don't need to go to a different screen and enable it. It'll just be right there. Now, once you enable these rules, you want to know what these rules are doing. So that's where this visualization comes in. So it starts from the left, where all traffic is being shown. And then based on the rule orders in your WebACL, it shows you how each rule is performing. So as you can see, the first rule is actually challenging part of the request. So on the console, where we'll do a live demo, where you'll be able to see like how we hover over and how we figure out how we're using this visualization. But the idea behind this visualization is to understand the rule performance. Then we have the X and Y axis, or outcome-driven visualization. So here what we have tried to do is we've tried to group metrics based on the outcome that you're driving towards. So the first one is traffic characteristics. So this is more of, hey, just give me an overview of what kind of traffic is going through my application, et cetera. So you would see that when you select traffic characteristics, the x-axis changes, and we have request location, or the geolocation in this case, as the first metric that you see. We also have a grid view, so if you don't want to view like one metric at a time, if you want to compare between metrics, you can select the grid view, and you'll be able to look at all the metrics in a grid view that gives you more information about this. Similarly, we have categories for anti-DDoS, which is DDoS traffic, bot management, and details of the managed rules as well. The last change, perhaps the biggest change on the dashboard, is the ability to query logs right off the dashboard. At launch, we support CloudWatch logs, but support for Kinesis will be coming soon. But here, what it will allow you to do is it will allow you to filter certain things from the dashboard, and it will show you those selected logs. So in this case, in the screenshot, I have filtered on URI path, and it gives me only the logs that match in that time frame. I can further drill it down, like there's a search bar right there. So if you want to say URI path and country, you have the ability to continue to filter and just look at the exact logs that you want to look at. This will really help your security operations engineers and to do any ad hoc troubleshooting, because this metrics can go back. Like, it's not the last 3 hours anymore. You can have a customized time period where you can say, hey, show me what happened 3 days ago, and it'll show up here. So what does it actually mean? Like, all these changes, how does what is the customer benefit of all these changes? So first of all, there's no additional cost. All of the APIs, all of the information that we saw in the screenshots is backwards compatible. So you have a tab in the console that says switch to the old console, switch to the new console. All the existing WebACLs will be available in the new experience as well as the old experience, so you can decide which one you want to use. Because of the onboarding changes that we made, we saw 80% reduction in configuration time. So this is a general WebACL with 3 managed rules and 3 custom rules. The number of clicks and the time it takes to configure them has gone down by 80%. And now, instead of having 4 different dashboards with 4 different tabs, we have one dashboard. And it drives you towards the outcome rather than just giving you a bunch of metrics. But it's great to hear about this. It will be great to see a live demo. So that's what's coming next. Logan will cover the live demo.
Welcome to the new AWS WAF. As Costa had mentioned, we're going to create a protection pack. And this is that new onboarding experience. Previously in WAF, we had to create a WebACL. We'd have to add every single rule to that WebACL, and we'd have to configure every single rule in that WebACL. So for our example company, they were an e-commerce app. And in this new experience, it will be as simple as saying, e-commerce. They offer web and API, so they have a web page or a mobile app as well as API service area. at our resources, global resources are available in US East 1. And right there, we get our protection packs recommended. At this point, we can give this a name, and we can click go. It's as fast as that. If you're in this view, and you say, you know what, I don't know what these rules mean, I want more information, you can jump right in, click on a rule, read about the rule. We'll even link to docs if there's more docs about that. So in this case, we'll create this rule. I'll give it a test name, test ACL. We'll create this rule pack. This is our new view of the web ACLs and those protection packs. In the old WAF experience, what we had was just basically a list of the names. And you'd see a list of names. You don't really know what they're doing. You don't know how many rules they have. You don't know their actual status. Here, we can see this experience is quite a bit different. We can see the traffic right on this list view. So all of your WAF v2 web ACLs that you've previously created can be seen here. You can pull them up. You can look at how much traffic they're getting. You can see how many of these rules are active versus how many of these rules are in account mode. You can then say, okay, I have 3 rules running in count mode. Maybe I should go look at the monitoring, and I can change configuration to put those into block. You'll notice that in this new experience where we're viewing our web ACLs, we have these sidecar experiences opening up. The point of this is that we keep you on one page the whole time. So rather than you having to go say, okay, I want to create an IP set, regex pattern set, something like that. You can do that all from this page right in here. You don't have to use the left nav and navigate to different pages. If you want to go look at your rules, edit your rules, you can do this right in here. Sidecar will open up. It'll show which rules are running in count mode. It'll show the WCUs. Click on a rule. You can configure the rule with a similar looking configuration to what you had in WAF v2. You'll also notice that you have the ability to edit resources and logging right in here. So let's look at some traffic. So like Kostub had mentioned, we now offer traffic-based recommendations. This is live. This is real traffic. So right off the bat, what customers have told us is, it's great that I have visibility. It's great that I have granular visibility. But what I really want, the first thing I want to know is, do I need to enable rules to keep my application safe and my customers safe? That's the first thing that we're going to show you here, which is, you can see these 3 rules are already enabled, but we can see right here that we have quite a bit of allowed bot traffic, and we're making a recommendation to enable this rule in count mode. We can toggle this on right here. This will enable our bots Amazon managed rules. You have a summary of traffic. And right here, as Kostub had called out, also we have our interactive SAN key graph. This is going to take all application traffic. Since our rules are always going to be applied in order, we put those rules in that order so you can see the actual traffic flow, the number of requests across each rule, the terminating actions. You can hover over a terminating action, see which rules actually cause that. If we want to dive deeper into a certain rule, so for instance, the AWS common rule set, we can go into this and filter to this rule and see an even more granular view of the AMR subrules and what terminating actions those are taking. In the old experience, you'd be looking at time series data, you'd be looking at graphs, you'd be trying to make sense across 10, 12 graphs to get this one view here. This was the second request that customers were really vocal about. I want one graph that shows me protection experience for my web ACL holistically in one place. We've also introduced a rule filter capability in this dashboard where we can actually filter right down to the rule level. So for those of you running rules in count mode, you'll know based on the previous experience, I have a rule in count mode. Do I know it's in count mode? I'm not sure. How do I find out what is happening with it? So here we can take those rules that we call out in our list view that are in count mode. You can come in here, you can filter just to that rule to get a very zoomed in assessment on whether you want to put that rule into block mode. We take this same time frame data that the SAN key offers, and we also show this in time series with action totals and our all rules graphs. You can do the same interactions here, see all of the rules, what actions were taken, fully interactive. The XY axis, or the overview dashboard that Kostab had also called out, this is that purpose-built, outcome-driven dashboard. We can hover over a country, we can see the number of requests coming in from any one of these countries. We can look at client devices, attack types. Where we have traffic characteristics, we also have rule characteristics. Again, everything's fully interactive. We have our bot dashboard, which gives you a very in-depth view of the different dimensions of bot traffic. We also have our new anti-DDoS dashboard, which gives you additional dimensions into DDoS traffic. Now, in the past, we've had our Top Insights dashboard, which we had launched in Jan of this year. This will give you those top insights across dimensions like URI path, user agent, etc. The new capability that we've introduced here is to take these top insights, and like Kostab mentioned, we have this new Log Explorer feature, and we'll see how this works here. If I say, you know what, I want to see what these 11 requests were to a .env, I can simply click on this and say View in Log Explorer. We'll see the logs right here in the console. You don't have to leave. You don't have to go back to your log source. You can correlate this live against the dashboard. Even better, when we want to see what really happened on an individual log, we have a log visualizer built in here. You can see the terminating action that was taken and the different dimensions of the request itself. So I'm going to go back and I'm going to look at a couple rule configurations now that you've seen kind of our first three buckets of this experience. So let's say we've gone to the dashboard, we've looked at some things, we want to make a couple edits to our rules. If we want to add a rule, custom rule, you'll see the exact same experience that you saw in the CloudFront experience. These are also outcome driven. The configuration is going to be more purposeful and accelerated. We're going to kind of bury the less critical things and surface just the configurations that you need to get up and running quickly. All these pages do have these sidecar experiences built in. So you'll notice that when you're using this experience, in the old WAF experience, you'd be interacting with about 45 different pages. In this experience, we have 4 core pages and the sidecar experiences to keep you on those pages to bring up just what you need right when you need it. In this experience, we also have our add-on protections, which are our partner managed rules. You'll see that you can activate these, add these inline in this experience also. Now with this new experience, it's fully backward compatible with WAF v2. So any web ACLs that you create in the new experience, you can use in the old experience. Any web ACLs that you have created in the old experience, you can use in the new experience. Fully backward compatible, the old experience is still there, and you will see that at the bottom of our nav, there is a button to get back to the old experience if you wish. The CloudFront experience and the new WAF experience are both available globally. CloudFront will be global region. WAF is fully regionalized and will be in all regions. We have links here to get started. Please use them. Thank you very much.